being is taken care of, make sure we're rehabbing them. Anything else on?
You know, particularly in today with crane operations, we're moving steel structures from the roof to help create those void spaces. So today is a very dangerous operation because we're moving steel. As we move steel, we certainly don't want people in the harm's way, so we're watching very carefully. Today's actual operation is considered slow to us, and that was mentioned before, because we have to very methodically rig the pieces of steel, cut the steel, and then move them away. And then as we move those away and they create additional void spaces, then we put canines into that section to help locate any victims or casualties that still may be living inside that building with those numbers that are still unaccounted for.
And we're, like I mentioned earlier, we're not just, you know, we've got so many responders that have come to this site. We're not just looking at this building, buildings behind me, buildings behind you, this entire field. You know, we're completely trying to eliminate the possibility for victims being in any of those locations.
When was the last time that you made a rescue of someone who was alive?
It was in the initial response with Chief French's operations.
What are the chances you'll find somebody alive at this point?
We don't know that right now.
How many people?
Search and rescue.
Yes, we are. That's correct.
How many people for sure were here when it happened? Do we know
that's
yet?
something that the company will have to answer in a later press conference.
It's emotional just covering this. I can't imagine what it's like being over there and searching for people. What's it been like for your workers, for your people?
Well, our initial response, to reiterate on what they were talking about earlier, one of the biggest issues was accessibility. It took some time to get here just because of the down power lines, trees, debris on the roadways. And then once we got here and started working, there was a difficult task at organizing the response and keeping accountability for the workers that were here. We wanted to concentrate our efforts with our best resources. We were very limited on resources initially. We're a small rural department, so we're very limited on some of our resources, so we were trying to concentrate those efforts into the areas where we knew we had people. And then, like I said, the accountability, there were so many people wanting to help that it was hard to rein that in and try to organize that and put that in an efficient working force. So
how are your people holding up? Have they at least been able to have a break, go spend time with family?
So our initial response put most of our responders into working about 40 plus hours at once. Thankfully, we got the overwhelming response from the state and local areas, local EMS services like Mercy Regional out of Murray, and with the help from Paducah, some of their leadership on scene, we began to backfill initially our department so that they could rotate off and get some rest and food and, you know, hydration and change of clothes, something dry to put on. So that's where all of that we were stretched so thin and barely holding on, and then these guys just backfilled and have made up.
That's one of the things that we wanted to do initially, was come in and relieve them, so that, you know, this is just a small piece of what happened here. So and as far as our people, we're rotating on 12-hour shifts, so we do 12 hours on and 12 hours off.
12 hours on, 12 hours off. How many at a time?
It's about 100 responders on site at a time.
Total?
Some of that gets scaled back at night just due to some of the safety issues that we have after dark.
How long will this take, do you think? I mean, I know it's probably really hard to gauge, but just looking and given your experience, how long does something like this take?
Probably not the right answer, but as long as it takes. We'll be here. You know, we've committed to the local emergency operations center that the group that's standing before you will take care of this site until it's done.
Sir, you described this as kind of slow for you today, but now once you get those large pieces of steel cut out and removed, how fast will the process pick up searching those other voids that are being created?
Well, canines can transfer structural rubble fairly quickly. It's harder for us as humans to walk across it, but for canines, they can get down into those void spaces and cover a lot of ground very quickly. The slow part is to remove the roof section that completely covered the production area of the candle factory. So if there was workers still in that area, that is our goal today, is try and make sure that those that are still unaccounted for, if they were here in the building, that we can recover them, and hopefully we can still find some of them.
So give us an update on how many people you're still looking for and rescue and relief efforts.
We're not releasing that number yet because we're searching every possibility before we release that.
Two more questions, folks. Two more.
You all have worked probably a lot of disasters. How does this compare?
This is the worst thing I've seen. I mean, the task force teams, the FEMA task force teams, they do this a lot more than we do.
We keep getting questions about that in particular. Indiana just responded to Surfside to the Champlain Tower collapse. We were down in Hurricane Ida in Louisiana. This is very reminiscent of Henryville for us, where you had an EF4 or EF5 tornado hit southern Indiana years ago that had a direct impact to a school. So the significant damage, and as we've said here, this is just a small portion of what has occurred in the state of Kentucky. There are multiple counties that have been affected by this storm, and as we travel to and from the work site, because we're staying outside of the impacted areas, we are coming across other paths of other touchdowns of tornadoes, and so the National Weather Service is still investigating the number of tornadoes that actually occurred and spun off in this one storm zone. But the destruction of the number of buildings is immense, and so right here is our focus, but there's other federal USAR teams. Ohio Task Force 1, Tennessee Task Force 1, and Missouri Task Force 1 all came in this morning with additional resources, especially canines, to help circumvent and do wide area searches in a quick, efficient manner so that we can get that information back to the county EOC and the county officials so that we can ensure that we've covered the areas of their concerns in this county.
Will you be working through Christmas? We're less than 2 weeks away.
We'll be here as long as we need to be here.
Do you have a specific number of people you're looking for?
No, as I've mentioned, we're not going to release that number until we firm up looking at every location, potentially that they could be. So we'll be back here at 3 o'clock. It'll be the same process.
So yes, they'd like your names and titles.
Okay. Jody, Jody, Myman, Meiman. I'm with helping with site control here. Again, brought a team from Louisville, and I'm the emergency management director from the city of Louisville.
Darren French, Assistant Chief of Mayfield Fire Department. I was signed here by my Department Chief, Jeremy Creason. My name is Darren, DARIN,
Tom Neal, T-O-M, last name's Neal, N-E-A-L. I'm a Division Chief with the Annapolis Fire Department and Task Force Leader for Indiana Task Force.
We'll give you all about 15 minutes to hang out, get some more shots, and then we'll see you again at 3 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
M-E-I, right? M-E-I, yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir.